Virginia Tech suffered their first losing season since 1992. But can they turn things around in 2019? Find out here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.
A 4-game losing streak and an upset loss to Old Dominion nearly saw Virginia Tech's 25-game bowl streak come to an end in 2018. But a thrilling win in overtime over Virginia and a makeup win over Marshall to end the season saw Virginia Tech get to their 26th straight bowl game before falling to Cincinnati to capture their first losing season since 1992. But things will be much different for the Hokies in 2019. They return one of the best defenses in the entire ACC. 10 returning starters on that side of the ball, a defense that allowed 31 points per game last year, which is very uncharacteristic for a Bud Foster-led defense. But like I said, it's going to be completely different. They're going to be solid on the defensive line, solid in the linebacking core, and solid in the secondary. They will be led by Rashard Ashby, who had 105 tackles for the Hokies last year, the leading tackler. And on offense, they returned 6 starters, including their quarterback and Ryan Willis, who I thought did a pretty good job filling in for the injured Josh Jackson last year, who has now transferred to Maryland. Willis threw for over 2,700 yards, 24 touchdowns, and just 9 interceptions. And to make his job a little bit easier in 2019, he returns his top wide receiver in Damon Hazelton, who had 802 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns. So this Virginia Tech team that struggled last year, going just 6-7, is going to have a major turnaround and could really contend for the Coastal crown in 2019. They kicked things off against Boston College, so they automatically open up in ACC play. And if you remember last year, Virginia Tech lost to BC by 10 points. Now, Boston College, usually known for having a strong defense, this year it will be the other way around. The Eagles will have a very strong offense led by Anthony Brown at quarterback and A.J. Dillon at running back, one of the best running backs in the ACC when he is healthy. The defense only returns 3 starters and probably will be a little shaky to kick off the season, and that's why I'm giving Virginia Tech a huge win on the road to open up the 2019 season. I think they take care of Boston College. They won there 2 years ago, fell at home to the Eagles last year, and I think with this much experience coming back in a Hokies team that I think is going to be pretty angry going into 2019, especially after such a letdown year in 2018, they get a key win over Boston College. Start off 1-0 overall and 1-0 in the ACC. And you'll notice we did not put an automatic W by Old Dominion. And you can understand why. Last year, Virginia Tech was number 13 in the country, went on the road to face the Monarchs, and lost by 14 points. And I know people will say that was because of the injuries. That was because Josh Jackson went down in that game. But regardless, Old Dominion wasn't playing with some of their best starters either, and were playing phenomenal across the board, even when Josh Jackson was healthy. But Virginia Tech, certainly going to be a big-time revenge game here. They will get the win over Old Dominion. And they will start off 3-0 with that win over Furman. They get a big-time bye week before they face off against Duke. And this is a Duke team that Virginia Tech beat 31-14 last year. And I want to keep in mind that was with a better Duke team. In my opinion, that was with a Duke team that had a lot of potential but wasn't able to fulfill it due to some injuries, especially when Daniel Jones wasn't healthy all the time. This year, Quentin Harris fills in for Daniel Jones at quarterback. The defense under David Cutcliffe will be extremely strong, and usually he is known as an offensive-minded coach. But coming off a bye week, a week of rest, and a Duke team that still later in September might be trying to figure a few things out on the offensive side of the ball, I think the Hokies get another win here. And just like that, they are 4-0, and they are 2 wins away from matching last year's win total. But then they go on the road against Miami. And this is an extremely tough game, a game that could very well determine who wins the ACC Coastal. And people will go ahead and say that Miami is not going to be good in 2019. They'll say, look what happened last year. They just went 7-6. They got killed by Wisconsin in their bowl game. But if you have watched some of our videos, you've heard me say that I think Manny Diaz was the best hire of the 2019 offseason, that he's bringing the swagger back for the Hurricanes, and they bring in Tate Martell at quarterback. And if you're going to go ahead and say that Tate Martell isn't that good, it doesn't matter. He's going to be coached by a guy named Dan Enos, who did phenomenal things as an offensive coordinator at Arkansas and Alabama, and even as a head coach at Central Michigan. He's like the quarterback whisperer. And I expect by October 5th, for them to work out any issues they have with Tate Martell, who I truly believe is the best quarterback on the roster at Miami, over the likes of N'Kosi Perry and Jaron Williams. This game on the road for the Hokies, I think that Miami gets a win here. Virginia Tech takes their first loss of the season. Keep in mind also last year, both these teams struggled last year, Virginia Tech and Miami. Miami went on the road against the Hokies and won 38-14. So there's a lot of things going into this game. Miami also coming off a bye going into this game. Too many factors for me to say that Virginia Tech can come on the road and get the win. Miami gets a clutch win that could play a major role in who wins that Coastal Division. They get an easy win over Rhode Island, of course, so they are 5-1 going into the game against North Carolina. And last year was a pretty scary game for the Hokies against the Tar Heels, only winning 22-19, having to score very late in that game to just hold on to a victory. This year, North Carolina brings in a brand new head coach, as we all know, in Mack Brown. And a lot of people are trying to say that Mack Brown will have immediate success in 2019 because even though UNC went 2-9 last year, they were very competitive in a lot of their games. A lot of their losses came by just one possession. But unfortunately, that's not going to be the case. They're still going to go through a lot of growing pains. Mack Brown's still going to have to deal with trying to implement his new offense, his new defense, dealing with some new players, even though they returned 14 starters. Virginia Tech, I think, beat UNC, and I think they beat them fairly handily, especially with this game being at home. And just like that, once again, they are 6-1 on the season. They have matched last year's win total, having another bye week before going on the road to face off against Notre Dame. And last year, Notre Dame won 45-23 over the Hokies, and that game was at Virginia Tech. Notre Dame was a college football playoff team last year, and even though Virginia Tech is coming off a bye, I just don't see them going on the road and beating the Fighting Irish. They return Ian Book at quarterback, some of their top receivers, and they have a defense that I do not think is getting a lot of attention, a defense that I think can be very solid in 2019. Now, whether or not Notre Dame is poised for a return trip to the college football playoff, that remains to be seen, especially with road games against Michigan, Georgia, and Stanford. But they can get the job done against a very improved Virginia Tech team. Virginia Tech takes their second loss of the year in the first game of November. Back home against Wake Forest, a team that's going to show major signs of improvement as well. I could see them winning 7 or 8 games. I can't praise Dave Clawson enough for the job that he has done with the Demon Deacons. Virginia Tech's defense going to have to step up a little bit here. Even though this game is at home, they're going up against a dual-threat quarterback in Jamie Newman, who's finally gotten the job as quarterback for the Demon Deacons. They had so many quarterback issues last year before Newman came onto the scene towards the end of 2018. So they're going to be able to shut him down and either make him win the game on the ground, so taking away the pass game, or make him win it through the air. It's going to be tough, but I think they do get a win over the Demon Deacons at home. Wake Forest going to be solid, but not solid enough to come on the road and get a win. On the road against Georgia Tech, another intriguing team, another team in the ACC that has a brand new head coach in Jeff Collins. And this is one of the most intriguing teams in the ACC this year, in my opinion, because of the drastic change that's going to be coming to this Yellow Jackets team. They're going to go from that option offense that Paul Johnson ran for so many years to a pro-style offense. Jeff Collins is going to try to implement that, and if you watch their spring game, if you've watched some of the highlights of practices, they look fairly solid. Georgia Tech looks somewhat comfortable running this pro-style offense, but how will it transition against Virginia Tech's defense that returns 10 starters, against a Bud Foster defense that allowed 31 points per game last year, but I could very well see allowing about 24 points per game this year, so a touchdown difference, which makes the world in the win column. So even though this game is on the road against Georgia Tech, I think Virginia Tech gets a key win over the Yellow Jackets. Even though, a lot of people are saying that Georgia Tech might only win 2 or 3 games, I don't expect that to be the case. I think they will catch a couple people by surprise with this pro-style offense, but it's not going to be enough to have major strides forward in 2019, in year 1 at least. Back home against Pittsburgh, a team that Virginia Tech allowed 492 rushing yards to last year. But the good thing for the Hokies is that Pittsburgh loses Quadre Olison and Darren Hall, Pittsburgh's top 2 rushers last year, 2 1,000-yard rushers for the Panthers last year. This game back at home, they suffered an embarrassing loss on the road last year. Revenge might be on their mind, and Pittsburgh is a team that I could very well see struggling offensively this season. Virginia Tech, another key win over the Panthers. They are just a 2-loss team, and they only have 1 loss in conference play. So depending on how Virginia is doing, depending on how Miami is doing, they very well could be in contention for the ACC Coastal crown, and with only 2 losses could find themselves in the top 15. But then they have the big-time date against Virginia, a team that Virginia Tech has beaten 15 times in a row. The streak will come to an end in 2019. And I know that is not what Virginia Tech fans want to hear, but you have to hear me out. Look, the streak's going to end eventually. And this just feels like the year it's going to happen. Virginia has a very talented team this season. They return, as I mentioned with Wake Forest, a dual threat quarterback. Imagine one that's even better with Bryce Perkins for the Cavaliers. And Virginia is due a win against the Hokies. They lost 34-31, an agonizing overtime loss last year. 2 years ago in 2017, it was a 10-0 loss for the Cavaliers. This year, I could see this game being very low scoring, much like it was in 2017. But in my opinion, Virginia owns the edge on the offensive side of the ball. I believe Bryce Perkins owns the edge over Ryan Willis. I believe that Virginia's wide receivers will do better than the Virginia Tech wide receivers. This game is at home for Virginia. They have their sights set on a Coastal crown. They have their sights on snapping this 15-game losing streak to the Hokies, and it will happen in 2019. Virginia Tech loses their final game of the season to finish 9-3 in 2019. And like I said, I know people won't be happy with that loss to Virginia, but they have to be happy with a 9-3 season after going 6-7 last year and just barely making a bowl game. So their bowl streak will extend to 27 straight games. They will probably make a very solid bowl game, be in contention to the very end for a New Year's Six bowl game. But Virginia Tech, once again, going to be dominant in the ACC, once again going to be a major threat. And depending on how they fare against Miami and Virginia, depending on how Miami and Virginia fare in their other 11 games, very well could win this ACC Coastal Division, which would be a huge step forward for Justin Fuente after such a disappointing 2018. So guys, thank you for watching here. Go check us out on Twitter at Gridiron Expert. Go check out our website, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up for our newsletter there. Check out the videos we have posted there, and most importantly, sign up for our expert picks, where you will get every single one of our spread picks for the 2019 season for just a one-time low fee. That's over 150 college football spread picks, including the postseason, for just a one-time fee. And I promise you won't regret it. If you're a college football fan, that's something you cannot afford to miss out on. And guys, as always, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time here on The Gridiron Expert.